Welcome back. And if you tried to find out the answer to this question 100 days into Trump administration, the sequel, who is the leader of the Democratic Party, you might have a hard time finding an absolute certified answer. I want to bring in our political panel. Meghan Hayes served as the director of message planning for the Biden administration. Matt Gorman, Republican strategist who served as a senior advisor on Senator Tim Scott's presidential campaign. I want to play for you both sound from today. It starts with very important White House senior advisor Stephen Miller and is followed by Representative Ilhan Omar of Democrat of the House. Let's listen.
Were there things that you had been hoping you could get done in these first 100 days that proved to be too difficult?
No, in fact, even my wildest dreams, ambitions, and hopes were exceeded these first 100 days in terms of what even I thought would be possible in such a short time frame, resetting our global trading relationships, as I mentioned, fully sealing and securing the southern border, getting control over a rogue federal bureaucracy and restoring presidential control over the executive branch so it's not unelected bureaucrats, but the President of the United States who is making decisions.
This is the behavior of a dictator. They are trying to turn our government into a weapon to punish enemies and reward friends. But I am here to tell you that this is not normal.
And there you have it. My wildest dreams were exceeded, and this is the behavior of a dictator. Matt, start us off.
I mean, look, this first 100 days, the story of it is executive orders. Certainly on immigration, I think it's probably one of their crowning successes. But you mentioned it earlier in the program, the next 100 days will be crucial because executive orders can come and can go, as you know from President Biden, we know from President Trump. Congress is a lot harder. Laws are stickier, as we know from President Biden's laws. We know from Obamacare. So what they can get done in this next 100 days and make a law that will live far beyond Trump is how it's going to be really important.
And when Stephen Miller says resetting the global trading agenda, well, there are lots of other words you could use besides resetting.
Certainly. I think that's.
And when I talk to Republicans on the Hill, they're like, okay, when they speak privately with some level of candor, they say, I just hope Trump figures this tariff thing out. And I say, what does that mean to you? And they don't really have an answer. They just want some certainty and something that they can believe in, both as a practical matter when they talk to their constituents and what the markets can make credible decisions based on.
In short, they're willing to go along with it or support it as if it's a negotiating tactic. If it's a new world order, it's a little harder for them to get behind, especially because they're the ones facing voters in 2 years. At least most of them are. Right. So I think that is going to be the key.
Meghan, please jump in.
Yeah, and we've talked about this. Matt and I have talked about this a lot, where Donald Trump is not going to have a third term, right? He is a lame duck president. So the people who are going to pay the consequences for his policies, good or bad right now, are the members of Congress. And, you know, these House members are facing re-election. And also who's going to run for president in 4 years on the Republican side is also who's going to face some of this backlash from some of these failed policies. And Stephen Miller can say that this is their wildest dreams, but everything that they have promised is now worse off than it was under the Biden administration, except immigration.
What is the state of the Democratic Party and the Democratic leadership 100 days into Trump?
I think the Democrats are still trying to find their footing and figure out how to push back on some of this. And I think that you have a lot of new voices that are coming out, like you just heard from Ilhan Omar, and you see AOC out there. You also see some of these Midwestern governors taking more of an active role in a national stage. And I think that people are still trying to find their footing of what matters.
What does it say 100 days in? And there was a transition in which all of this was, if not known, certainly foreshadowed, that Democrats still don't have their footing.
I think that it says that the Democrats, I think, were rocked off their footing in the election from the president dropping out and then to having Kamala Harris take over. I think that sort of displaced the Democratic Party and what the future was. And I think now they are trying to see what the future is and what their message is. I think they are learning slowly that the message that they had in 24 did not resonate with middle America, or we would have won. And so I think they are trying to refine their footing. And I think that some of them are doing a better job than others, but I don't necessarily think that it matters so much that every member is singing from the same song sheet here. I think it's a matter that they are talking to their constituents and that they are ready to take back the House in 2 years.
Matt, do you think President Trump, 100 days from now, will be waging all the fights with the federal courts, universities, and other perceived political opponents that he's waging now? Or do you think that was a kind of shock and awe thing that will ebb off over time?
I think it was a strategy that they're going to ask for more than they think they could possibly get. Let the courts peel 60%, 30% of it back. They still get more than they would have gotten if they never asked. I think this is a deliberate strategy. Certainly have more clarity from the Supreme Court on things like immigration and DOJ and other things in particular ways. I think that was a calculated strategy. I expect to see more of that.
And when it comes to something as fundamental to the Constitution, and I've talked to lots of constitutional scholars about this, like the 14th Amendment, birthright citizenship, they want to win that case. They don't just want the Supreme Court to consider it, which it is going to consider. They want to win that and redraft the entire understanding about what immigration is or citizenship isn't in this country.
I mean, that's not a new debate. You and I, Major, were talking about this when I worked on Jeb Bush's campaign.
Yes.
Scott Walker got in trouble about having different answers on birthright citizenship. So I think finally, I will say, we will be having some clarity, at least in our party, for what we have for the last 12 years.
And Meghan, for Democrats, is immigration as potent a potential issue against Trump as inflation and the economy?
I think it is a winning issue for him, but I think that people are starting...
Which is a winning issue?
Sorry, immigration has been a winning issue for him, but people are starting to... He's underwater on it right now. The American people actually think he's gone too far in a lot of the space in immigration. So I think that he needs to take care of the economy. He needs to start talking about inflation and the cost of housing, the cost of groceries, all of those types of things, or the Republicans will suffer in 26 if they do not get the economy under control. It does not matter what else you do. They take it from a lesson from the Democrats. If you do not have the economy under control, you will lose.
So, Matt, when I talked to these 6 folks in our focus group last night, 3 Trump supporters, all 3, when I asked, is there any fear you have that Trump could go too far in immigration? None of them were fearful about that. All 3 of the Democrats were. But in their own way, the 3 Republican Trump supporters all brought up some level of concern about tariffs. What does that tell you?
Oh, the economy. And I'll go along with exactly what your voters said. That was a huge takeaway I took from traveling with Tim Scott, the Republican base. There's almost nothing you can do that's too far right in immigration within reason. The economy is going to be really where, and the law that they've eventually passed is going to be really key to the success of this presidency.
They might not go, they might not go too far with the immigration on the base, but they can go too far with moderate voters.
Meghan Hayes, Matt Gorman, thank you so much for being with me. I appreciate it.